Hey guys, Rachel and Daniel here from Mango Street. Ever since we released our first tutorial, you guys have been asking us how we edit our photos. So today we're going to walk you through a step-by-step process of how we do that in Lightroom. Or if you don't feel like learning anything, just head to the description below this video and you can download our preset for free.
The first thing I like to do when building a preset is grab one of my favorite photos from a shoot that I feel will be a good starting point for creating the look I want. Before we dig in, make sure your exposure and white balance are correct. In this case, I'm going to warm it up just a little bit. Next, let's bump the contrast up to somewhere around 30. I generally like to take the highlights down to mute things a bit and bring in more detail. I also like raising the shadows quite a bit to lighten up the image and bring in some more details in the shadow region. The whites can come down a bit too, but let's leave the blacks as they are. I'm going to bump the clarity up to 5. We don't want to go overboard because it can start looking overdone pretty quickly. Now in the tone curve, the bottom left of the curve is your black point, which defines the darkest part of your image. The top right is your white point, which defines the brightest part of your image. When you see quote-unquote moody shots on Instagram, they usually have the black point crushed a bit, so the darkest point is not true black. You lose a lot of detail this way, so I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to raise it the slightest amount. Let's create another point here and bring it down to bring back in some of the contrast. Another popular style is crushing the whites, so if you want to do that, just bring the white point down to the desired level. That's not the look I want for this one, so I won't do that. I'll just add another point and ever so slightly lift it up. Now we're into my favorite section, which is the HSL sliders. If you don't see all of the options here, just select the All button. Now a lot of these settings will depend on the colors in your photo, so if you want the preset to work on many different shoots, don't go overboard here. I'm just going to adjust the hues slightly. I'll make the reds a touch more orange, the orange a touch more yellow, but feel free to tweak it how you want it. Now in the saturation section, I'm going to bring down just about every value to give it a more muted look. In the luminance section, I'll lift the orange to somewhere around 15, but take the yellows back to around -50. Since digital greens can be obnoxious, I'm going to tone them down a bit by lowering their luminance to -70 or so. If that's too extreme for your image, just lessen the amount that you're lowering it by. Now with split toning, you can add color to your highlights and shadows individually. Now I'm going to leave the highlights as they are, but I'll add a little warmth into the shadows. To do that, let's select the hue that we want. In this case, it's in the yellow region. Then we'll add just a touch of saturation, somewhere around 8 or so, should be good. Alright, on to sharpening. I don't usually get too crazy with sharpening, maybe around 8 or so, and I turn the masking up to somewhere close to 100, just to sharpen the most in focus areas. Next, set your profile corrections to auto if you want your preset to automatically determine and apply the correct lens correction. Alright, we're almost done. The camera calibration section will give us some overarching guidelines for the preset. In this case, I'm going to make the shadows a touch more green, and I'm going to make the hue of the red more orange, and I'm also going to desaturate it to around -19. The green hue will be a little bit bluer, and the saturation of that will also get knocked down to around -10. I also like a little more of a cyan hue for my blues, so I'll adjust the hue accordingly. Let's also adjust the saturation of that so it's less intense. Alright, last but not least, I'm going to scroll back up to the saturation section, and I'm just going to bring the color back into the image a little bit. I think 10 on this one should do it, but feel free to make adjustments on your own image to get it just where you want it. Alright, and there you have it. If you're happy with what you have, hit the plus sign over here to save it as a preset. Now, go ahead and check all, but then deselect any local adjustments you might have put on there. Also, our white balance, our exposure, deselect your transform, and any cropping that you may have done. Next, name your preset, put it in a folder, and hit create. The next thing I like to do is make sure that it's going to look good across a variety of different photos. So I've pulled in a few different shots. Here we have an interior shot. If I apply the preset, you can see it looks pretty good. We just need to bump the exposure up a little bit and maybe adjust the white balance. Then on this outdoor photo, let's apply the preset. And you can see it looks pretty good. And if you like the tones, keep doing what you're doing. But if you think, any of these settings that we did in the HSL sliders alter the image too much and you don't like the hue or the luminance, just find a happy medium that works between the two photos and then update your preset. To update the preset, right click on the preset that you made and say update with current settings. Now once again, we're going to deselect everything that we don't want the preset to save, which is our white balance, our exposure, and any local adjustments, any cropping, things like that. Then just hit update. On this last photo, it's outdoors, it's sunset, let's apply it. And I think it looks great. So it lifted the shadows on his face, which is awesome, and really gets those sunset tones right where I like them.
We hope you guys learned something from this tutorial, and we'd love to see your presets in action. When you post an edited photo to Instagram, use the hashtag #MangoStreetPresets and we'll check them out. As always, just let us know what you want to learn next in the comment section and give us a thumbs up and subscribe.